You're in a long distance relationship and you miss them so much, it physically hurts. You feel like you're constantly fighting anxiety in those stories that are spinning in your mind that they're losing interest or that they're finding someone better, which causes you to stay up until 3 a.m. crying on the phone to them and needing that constant reassurance. If this is you, if you find being long distance with your partner a real struggle, something that is impacting your life, maybe you find yourself saying things like, I can't do this anymore, I can't do long distance relationships, then this episode, my love, is for you. Today, we are diving into the truth of what it means to be in a long distance relationship when you have an anxious attachment style and how to manage it, how to cope with it. I'm going to be sharing my story about what it used to be like when I was doing long distance with my previous partner and what it's like now doing long distance with my current partner. So let's get into it. Hello, my love. Welcome back to the Relationship Rehab Podcast. If you are new here, my name is Samantha, and welcome. Welcome to this space where we talk about all things attachment styles, love, relationships. And today we are focusing on long distance relationships. A lot of you have been in my DMs telling me that you're really struggling to do long distance with your partner, whether it's a long term or short term situation. And I get it. I totally get it. I have been in that space myself, and it is so hard. And I want to break down why we find it so hard. I remember in those moments telling myself that I will never do long distance again, that it's just not for me. But the truth is, life doesn't always work that way. And sometimes we meet someone, like in my case, that's from a completely different country. And life gets in the way, work gets in the way, family. So there will be periods of time, maybe in your relationship too, where you will have to be away from each other. It is such an important topic because I would hate for you to not feel like you can be in the relationship that you're in because you have to go through a phase of long distance. I want to be able to provide some insight and maybe some hope that you can get through this with the right tools and strategies that I'm going to share on this episode today, that this is something that you can manage. But first, let me take you back to a few years ago when I was dating a guy that I had met in Thailand, and I made the decision to go to Australia because I had already applied for the visa and I planned to go and live and work there. Now, when I got to Australia, I remember thinking, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I want to be back in Bangkok with my boyfriend. And I was constantly living out that thought that I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. So guess what? I didn't have a good time there. But I remember the experience being that I just couldn't relax. I couldn't enjoy myself. I remember having all of these intrusive thoughts that he was going to find someone better than me, or getting jealous if he was going on a night out and thinking that he was going to cheat on me, which meant that I was staying up past 3 a.m., absolutely beside myself with anxiety, crying, phoning him, and he's on the other end of the phone doing his best to reassure me. It gave me that short term satisfaction, but long term, I was still so on edge. My nervous system was so activated. I remember really doing my best to enjoy myself, going out with the new friends that I've made and trying new experiences and really getting out there and embracing my life in Australia. But deep down, I just missed him so much and I wanted to be with him. And everything that I did, I was thinking, I wish that I was doing this with him. And I remember there was this one moment where I was just not having a good day. I just was constantly playing this story on repeat that I didn't want to be here. I want to be back with him. And this led to me calling him, and we stayed up all night on the phone. I was just crying. And he was doing his best to reassure me and cheer me up and compliment me, but I could tell that he was exhausted. I could tell that he knew that no matter how much reassurance I give her, it's not going to be enough. So I had to make the decision whether to continue this or to go back and be with him. And that's what I chose. I chose to give up my opportunity to be in Australia, and I moved back to Thailand to be with him. Now, I made that decision that I felt was right for me, but looking back, those 2 months that I spent away from him were so difficult because one, I may have had this perception that if it wasn't difficult, if I didn't crying on the phone and missing him so much, then did it really mean anything? Did I really love him? And two, I realized that I needed that constant communication. It was almost like a drug for me to receive that constant reassurance. And when I wasn't getting it, when I would feel him distancing himself, and this may have been because he had a busy day and he just needed rest in the evening, I would cause drama. I would say something that would trigger him, which then gave him some sort of emotional reaction. Therefore, he would then call me or be texting me. And I got exactly what I wanted, which was that close proximity with him. I needed constant texts and phone calls all the time. I remember my friends being quite annoyed that we were on nights out or we were trying to enjoy an experience and I just wasn't fully present. I was constantly looking at my phone, constantly talking about it all the time, that I wonder what he's doing. I wonder if he's missing me. And another situation that really impacted us both, impacted the relationship, was I hadn't heard from him all day, maybe a few text messages here and there, but I didn't feel close to him. And then when the time came for us to have a phone call in the evening, and we were on different time zones as well, he was very tired from a day at work. And I then made that mean that he wasn't missing me, that he didn't want to talk to me. So I caused a fuss. I kicked off. I didn't communicate it clearly that I was feeling like I was taking this personally and this is what was happening in my body. But instead, I just started to attack him. I was saying, "You don't miss me as much as I miss you. That must mean that you don't love me. You don't really want to be with me." And I could just feel the exhaustion in his voice. And I see this a lot with friends, with audience members, with clients, where they cannot deal and handle the long distance. So it either happens that you are forced back together, like someone has to sacrifice something in order for you to be physically together, or the relationship disintegrates. And like I said earlier, the reality being that sometimes life does throw us these curveballs, and we do have to manage an episode, a period of long distance with each other. But let's look at why long distance relationships are more triggering for you if you do have an anxious attachment. And it's because being anxiously attached means that you equate physical distance and emotional distance with safety. And when you're not together, that doesn't feel safe. Your fear of abandonment is constantly being triggered as those stories spiral in your head that this person is going to cheat on you or find someone new. And the lack of shared daily experiences can really amplify that emotional distance as well. And then we start to adapt these coping mechanisms like constant texting or needing to have those phone calls 3 times a day in order to make you feel okay. It's a temporary fix, but it's not a long-term cure. And I also want to add here as well that some of us may have these perceptions, narratives, stories of what love and relationships are supposed to look like, depending on what we have observed in our childhood or even in movies and music. I remember having this narrative that it's not a relationship if you're not physically together. And we must be joined at the hip if we are in love. I couldn't really get myself to that point where I understood that it was needed in order for both of us to grow, in order for both of us to be able to find and sustain and maintain our own sense of self, that we're not looking for that in each other. I was definitely looking for that in him. I really did see my partner as an extension of myself, a very big factor in who I was, provided me with significance, with meaning and purpose and connection. And I really looked at my partner for all of those needs to be met. I didn't know how to get those needs met for myself or to be able to see that I can actually get those needs met with other people, with friends, with family. And if we're not sharing these experiences together, then what's the point? And that's the thing about anxious attachment. There can be this element of codependency coming through, that we have to do everything together. I depend on you for my sense of worth to get my needs met. What I'm learning now with an earn secure attachment and doing long distance with my partner is that he doesn't define my sense of self and self-worth, that I get to have a very full and fulfilling life, even though we are not physically together right now. We don't have to be able to share everything. We do get to have our own experiences as individuals, as well as our own friends and hobbies, etc. We don't have to do everything together. Why it is now working for me now, and it didn't back a few years ago with my previous partner. And there's a few factors that I've been reflecting upon. And the first one is the most important one is that I have done the work on myself, that I am able to regulate my own nervous system. I am able to meet my own needs. And that in and of itself has allowed me to develop a strong sense of self. I've got other things going on in my life, my business, my friends, and that means that I'm no longer fixating on what he's doing because I've got my own stuff going on. And I do have my moments where I am feeling a little sad that I'm missing him. Of course, that is still there. But I'm not now projecting that onto him, maybe even blaming him, making it his fault that because he's not here, that I'm feeling this type of way and I don't want to feel this type of way. So you better go and do something about it. Instead, I'm looking at myself and being like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit sad today. And it's okay to feel that way, validating yourself first and foremost. By developing that strong sense of self, you're working through your insecurities. So one of the major insecurities I had back then was that my partner was going to leave me, that fear of abandonment being constantly activated. But another major factor in this current relationship is that I feel safe. I feel safe and secure, not only in myself, but in the relationship. I fully trust my partner, and trust, yes, it gets to be built between two people, but it is a decision. It's a choice to trust someone, and ultimately comes from trusting yourself first and foremost, that you cannot control everything outside of you. You cannot guarantee and 100% say with certainty that your partner is never going to cheat on you. But when that element of trust with others comes through, it's because you trust yourself. I trust that if this was to happen, I know that even though it's going to be so painful and I'm going to have to work through that betrayal, deep down, I know I'm going to be okay. I can handle this. I can hold myself through all of this. And it's knowing I have that emotional anchor within me, that self-trust, that self-respect, that no matter what happens outside of myself in this relationship that I cannot control, I'm going to be okay. A lot of us are in this state of worrying, anxiety, trying to manipulate and control and fix the relationship and our partner as much as possible to give us this illusion that we have control, that we have certainty, that we're never going to be hurt or betrayed. But the truth of the reality is life is a risk. Whatever we do in our life, whether we get into a relationship, start a business, go outside, we're always taking risks, and it always comes back to the relationship we have with ourselves. So I really released that. I released trying to control or wanting to know every step that my partner is taking and every little thing that he is doing. That's exhausting for both of us. I don't want to be that person that's constantly keeping tabs on her partner, and I don't want that done to me either. I want us both to have freedom in our relationship. Looking back, I stifled that in my past relationship because I did want to know his every move and who he was with and what he was doing, because that gave me a sense of, or illusion of, safety. But the truth of it was that I was suffocating him. He didn't feel free anymore in himself, in his life. So I value that a lot more in my current relationship. Another big thing is I know my triggers, I know my patterns, and I know that this is all coming from my inner child wounds. So I can see them, I can detach from them, and I can manage them and not get too involved with them. When something comes up, either physically in my body or cognitively in my mind through a story or a narrative, I can catch it. I can be like, okay, I'm thinking this type of way. Let me not push it aside or try to think positively all the time. Let me get curious. Let me explore it. I'm thinking that he may not be interested in knowing about my day, but what could also be happening? He could also just be really tired from his day. And maybe there's something else going on underneath. Maybe I don't feel as connected to him right now. Because don't get me wrong, being in a long distance relationship is hard. You're going to have to put things in place. And that brings me to my next point, that having clarity and maybe even some guidelines for your relationship can really make a big difference. So maybe this is something that you talk within your partner. Okay, how much do we communicate a day? So me and my partner, we say good morning and good night via text message. We do our best to talk once a day. That's our baseline. Anything above that is a bonus. And we do our best to share little snippets of our lives as well, because like I said, sharing daily experiences really do amplify emotional connection. And as anxiously attached lovers, we do need a lot of emotional connection. This could be something that you can implement, sharing pictures, voice notes, videos, things like that, so we can feel close to our person when we're not physically close. So having communication compatibility is essential. If you are in a long distance relationship with somebody who is more on the avoidance side, again, brings me to my next point of being able to do this with your partner. Knowing the difference between you doing all the work and trying to sustain a relationship when it's long distance and them just leaning back and receiving and not putting in much effort. It needs to be a lot of effort on both ends in order to sustain a long distance relationship. People with a more avoidant attachment style, they actually favor long distance because it means that the physical distance feels more safe for them. It means that they're not going to be overwhelmed or suffocated in any way by this person because we're physically detached. But what we see a lot of the time with the more avoidantly attached people is they go about their day, they're living their life, they're doing them, and sustaining communication can be such a hassle for them. And it almost makes us feel like a burden that we require them to text us and call us every day in order to sustain the relationship. They may not need that. They may express that I don't need to talk to you every day. But then they're not taking into account what you need in this relationship to feel physically, to feel emotionally safe and close to this person. We also need to take into account their needs and come together, meet ourselves in the middle. Same with my partner. He's also expressed that I don't feel distant from you if I don't talk to you every day. I still feel so much love towards you. Nothing changes for me. And I said, me too, but I do appreciate it. It makes me feel close to you. And I love to hear about your day. I love to hear your voice. And it just makes me happy. And hearing that, he wants to do it. He wants to do it. He's willing. He's willing to go outside of what he knows, what he's used to, in order to sustain peace and happiness in our relationship. So if you're with someone who is on that avoidant side and doesn't want to, not willing to talk to you every day or text you and build that connection with you or sustain it, depending on where you're at, then that's going to be triggering. Absolutely. No wonder you're feeling so anxious and triggered right now. If this person is completely cutting themselves from you and just expecting you to go along with their tune of not having much communication. And I also want to make this point that it does really affect us as well, depending on where in the relationship you are when you're doing long distance. I had a client who was dating someone long distance. That can be tricky because you're in that very new space of getting to know somebody, which can be quite difficult to do when you are physically away and you're not able to go on dates. Not impossible, but it can be difficult. Even more so that these two people need to be on the same wavelength here. We need to put in that effort that we want to get to know this person, even though we cannot go on physical dates with each other, that we're going to set up virtual dates, that we're going to keep checking in with each other and get to know each other this way until we can come back and be physically together. I feel like as a relationship grows more, like my partner and I, we have been in a relationship for a few years now. So it doesn't feel so triggering for us to be apart right now. We've already built that safety with each other in the relationship. Clarity is calming, being clear on where you're at and what this relationship looks like while you're doing long distance. Sharing expectations from both sides, what you're needing, what you're desiring from each other, being able to meet that in the middle so we don't fall into codependency and emotional dumping, but they don't also fall into just being completely distant emotionally and physically. Maybe there are rules and guidelines, like I said, in the relationship that you call at least once a day, or you have a virtual date night on a Friday. What are some things that we can put in the diary that I know that we are going to do this together this week? And that makes me feel physically close to you. And as anxiously attached lovers, it makes us feel safe in the relationship. It all comes back down to that feeling safe to be in this long distance. That was a massive thing previously. I did not feel safe in myself, first and foremost, that I could do this, that I could trust this person, that I could trust myself. Being apart from them and just constantly causing that drama in order to get that close proximity emotionally with him. Another big one for us is if we are unclear whether we are going to see this person again and when. If it's not clear when you will see this person again, that can be triggering. So what we do, we always make sure that we have a idea, at least, if not a plan, where we are going to see each other. So for instance, we are going to travel to China together in 1 month's time. Now that's me. I'm seeing him in a month. I can really cherish and nourish this time with myself, with my friends before I see him again. And then we'd have another bout of long distance when I go to the UK and I be with family. This is not going to be forever. It's not going to be forever. We are working towards developing a long-term plan where we can settle together in the same country where we met here in Thailand. And we are going to start doing these things together. But right now, it's just not feasible. We both have our different dreams and we have our different goals, and we're supporting each other with that. Like, I have my personal goal of going back to the UK every summer to see my family. Now, I'm not expecting him to come with me for the whole time that I'm there. It would be lovely for him to come for a visit, but he needs to check in with his goals and plans with his work. So it's about working together as a couple to support each other's individual plans. Just because you have individual goals and dreams doesn't mean that you're not compatible. It just means that compatibility needs to be built. So these rules, guidelines, routines, predictability can soothe our anxious, activated system without overly relying and overly depending on them and their reassurance and their validation. Being able to reassure and validate ourselves first and foremost, but be able to have those things in place so we know that we're going to have that connection with them. Another important point here for a lot of us who are in long distance relationships, and I've heard it from my audience, like, but what if I really do feel like they're cheating? What if I really do feel like they're actually not in a relationship with me, that they're actually dangling me on a string and they're continuing to live their life, but they want me on the sidelines? This can happen, unfortunately. And we need to come back to our intuition, knowing the difference between our intuition and our anxiety. So is this something that is coming from me that maybe I have no evidence, I have nothing to grasp on that this person is being unfaithful or leading me on in any way? I really do feel like it's these stories and narratives and wounds and just my activated nervous system causing all this distress within me. Or do I have this gut feeling, even little small bits of evidence and red flags that this person may actually be unfaithful, may actually be leading me on? Maybe I'm just ignoring it. I don't want to see it because that means that I have to address it. And that may mean that I might lose this person. So instead, I'm just going to push it to one side. But there's this nagging feeling of, girl, this is not okay. This person is leading you on, or this person is obviously being unfaithful to you, but you're not listening. You're not listening to that intuitive voice that is coming through for you. Having a secure foundational base in the relationship. Notice that I'm not saying a secure partner, because I really do believe that even people with an insecure attachment, whether it's anxious, avoidant, fearful avoidant, can work towards having an earned secure attachment. Working together, knowing each other's needs, triggers, boundaries, and working together to be able to develop that safety within the relationship, to develop a secure relationship, even if both partners are still working on their attachment trauma. So healing does start with you. You get to lead the way here. You get to define the energy of this relationship. It's a balance of really being able to take radical responsibility for ourselves and our nervous system and our needs, and to be able to find our sense of self-worth and sense of self within ourselves and other areas of our life in order to sustain a relationship that may be going through a long distance phase, and having a partner that is willing to work with us on communication, on boundaries, on being able to build, grow, and sustain the relationship while you're going through a long distance phase. So I hope this episode has really helped and supported you to see long distance relationships as not something that is bad or to be avoided. And I hope that we can come away from, I can't do long distance relationships. It may not be for you, but I hope that we can embrace the reality sometimes of relationships having to go through these phases, as long as they don't last forever, of course. And they can actually be a really beautiful opportunity. They can act as a mirror for some of the things that do need our attention and healing from within. They can act as an opportunity to come back to yourself, to spend time with yourself, to maybe prioritize your work, your friends, your family. And long distance can strengthen a relationship. It can break one, don't get me wrong, it can go the other way, but it can also really strengthen a relationship, really strengthen that sense of interdependence. So for someone like me who has been so used to codependency patterns and so used to these narratives that a couple should be joined at the hip and spend all their time together, and this person should define who I am and give me my sense of worth and purpose, this is the most incredible opportunity to realize that none of that is true, that I do that for myself, and that I can fully support my partner in his individual dreams while I chase my own, and we can still be together in a beautiful, loving relationship with so much support from both sides, rather than blaming the other person for being away or seeing that person as a crutch for emotional dumping. So, to answer the question of whether long distance relationships for people with an anxious attachment can work, absolutely it can, with the right tools, with the right mindset, with the right healing modalities in place, and with the right partner, of course. And it all comes down to that element of emotional safety. So, no matter how much physical distance is present in your relationship, as long as there is emotional connection, emotional safety, then this is something that you 100% can manage and even thrive in. But as always, I would love to hear what you think of this episode, to share your long distance relationship experiences with me. I'd love to hear your stories. Just reach out to me on Instagram and send me a DM. Let me know what you think about the episode, if you want to share any insights or breakthroughs. And of course, if you really are struggling and maybe you don't have a strong support system, or you don't feel like you can talk to anyone in your support system, or maybe you know that you need a little bit of professional help, that those wounds are being really triggered, the anxiety is off the chart, and you need some support, you're always so welcome to explore my coaching programs and just send me a DM and tell me that you're needing some support from myself, and we can explore what that looks like between us. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I'm sending you so much love and light. And just remember that you're not too much in this long distance relationships. Your needs just need tending to by you first and foremost. And just see this as an opportunity to really come back to yourself. Lots of love and see you in the next episode. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode on the Relationship Rehab podcast. If you really enjoyed this episode, it would really mean a lot to me if you was to share this episode with a friend who really needs to hear what has been talked about today, and hit that subscribe or follow button so you don't miss any new episodes coming out. And as always, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment and let me know what your biggest takeaway was from this episode.